The Brickstore Museum's Festival of Traditions highlights Kennebunk citizens in history who came to the U.S. from throughout the world. We have chosen a few families to feature in our galleries as well as here online. The list is by no means comprehensive, nor does it showcase the incredible variety of cultures that all found home here in Kennebunk. Over the next week or so, we'll be sharing some news stories of immigrant families that called Kennebunk home. At the turn of the 20th century, Kennebunk was a small town with a population of roughly 3,000 people. For one so small, however, the varied types of industry in the town were impressive. This included a booming shipbuilding business along the Kennebunk River, and as the shipping trade wound down, a mini industrial revolution took its place, during which several mills and factories popped up downtown that created everything from twine to shoes to textiles to leatheroid. Farming continued as a strong business from the 16th century through to today, and of course tourists began summering in Kennebunk in the 1880s, and that hasn't slowed since. Industries here in town drew hundreds of workers from immigration hubs like Boston and New York to Kennebunk. The stories you'll hear today are just a few of the thousands that exist about the immigrant experience in Maine. Between 1880 and 1920, the United States experienced a massive influx of immigrants due to persecution, famine, or a chance at a new life. These stories are common to many of our immigrant ancestors, those of families that left their homeland, changed their name, or had it permanently misspelled, struggled to find a place of their own, and finally witnessed the geographic expansion of their descendants. Immigrants were met with varying degrees of acceptance, depending on the country of their origin. For instance, Germans and Scandinavians were generally accepted, as they easily assimilated because of their similar cultural practices and appearance. The cruel caricatures of people of various other cultural origins stoked a growing public fear of immigrants and inspired Congress to pass restrictive immigration laws in 1917 and again in 1924. Put simply, these laws limited the amount of immigrants allowed into the country annually. Hundreds of thousands were turned away, specifically in the 1930s, as persecuted groups in Europe sought safety. Laws imposed a literacy test in any language, and also an origins quota, which limited the number of immigrants from each country based on what descendants already lived here. For Asia and the Middle East, this resulted in a complete halt of immigration to the United States until 1965. For others, the quota restricted immigration to 2% of the current population from specific countries. The new law traced the origins of the whole of the U.S. population, and as a result, this included large numbers of people of British descent. So the percentage of visas available to people from the British Isles or Western Europe increased, while immigration from elsewhere decreased to a trickle. These laws were not altered until 1965. Today we'll explore the story of the Drescig family from Austro-Hungary. The widowed Anton Drescig and his three children, Mary, age 19, Arthur, age 14, and Josephine, age 9, emigrated to the United States in 1912. The Dressigs came from a village called Trieste, as you can see here on this map, which is in current-day Italy. But the Dressigs were not Italian. Their heritage was a combination of Austrian and Slovenian. The region in which they lived is located near Italy's current border with Austria, Slovenia, and the Adriatic Sea. Slavic, German, and Mediterranean influences and traditions converge in this region. Anton Drescig himself chose to leave Trieste because of the land disputes that came with moving borders. When Anton was born in the 1880s, Trieste was part of the Habsburg monarchy under the Austrian rule. By 1910, it was known as the Austro-Hungary Empire. By 1920, only 10 years later, after the Great War, Trieste was annexed to Italy. In the 1930s, it became part of the Slovene Republic, and later Yugoslavia. In 1940, it was part of Austria, soon to fall to the Third Reich. Then in 1947, it became its own free city-state, and in 1954, it was divided between Italy and Yugoslavia, which later moved Trieste back and forth between Slovenia and Croatia. Every time Anton Drescig answered the U.S. Census, he listed his place of birth as a different country. Here is an image of one of the censuses taken by Anton Drescig when they lived for a time on High Street in Kennebunk. As you look to the right of the page, you can see that it says Yugoslavy and then German. The Drescig family departed Europe on the SS Finland out of Antwerp, Belgium, and arrived in Hoboken, New Jersey on December 12, 1912. 4 days later, Anton married his second wife, named Agnes, in New York City. Agnes, from Switzerland, also arrived the same year. His oldest daughter Mary found work in the city, but Arthur, Josephine, Agnes, and Anton headed north. Upon arriving in Kennebunk, they purchased a home at 32 Alfred Road in West Kennebunk. Agnes worked as a dressmaker in town, and Anton was a trunk maker and carpenter working at the mills. The family became naturalized citizens in 1921. Anton's daughter Josephine married a local man named Leon Gardner and raised a family in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. The family's heritage from the Austro-Hungarian region is a real mix of cultures and traditions that form a beautiful mosaic, and this goes for their Christmas traditions too.